Just to let you know, we will be, if you can mute yourself as you enter, if you have any questions, you can either unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can type it into the chat and I'll make sure Judy knows what it is. Judy did get all your questions that you submitted. So we've taken care of that, but if anything comes up through her talk, please feel free to ask questions. So Judy we're welcoming Judy Haber from Performance Sponsorship Group. And Judy's considered best in class in the sponsorship industry. She has been selling corporate sponsorship and naming rights for the past 25 years. Judy's been instrumental in packaging and selling events that include the Shoppers Drug Mart Toronto Marathon, the Bay Street Rat Race, and over the last 10 years has spearheaded the BDO Yorkville Run for charities. Since March of 2020, Judy has been inspirational in selling $7 million worth of sponsorship. So Judy, thank you so much for giving us your time and attention. Love having you, and I'm going to hand it over to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Nice to be back. I recognize some names. I think some of you we met. It wouldn't have been last year, but the year before when we were live. And I hope we'll be live next year and we'll meet again. So I want to apologize to those who have heard me speak before, maybe more than once. If things sound repetitive, there are some things that are worth repeating. So I think that's why some of you are back to actually hear it again. What I'd like to do is ideally make this highly interactive. And I invite questions because there are many of you.
Those two were like gonna die.
I'll mute that. Thanks, Judy.
There are many of you on the call who have as much, if not more, experience than me. So I think we can share and learn a lot from each other as industry colleagues and as leaders in the business. I'm not a leader in the event business. I'm certainly, I guess, would be considered a leader in corporate sponsorship sales. That's my wheelhouse, selling. That's kind of all I know how to do. But at least I know what I know how to do and I know what I don't know how to do, which is actually a good place to start this conversation. Again, you know, many of you work for organizations that have the expectation that you're going to generate X amount of money. And some of us work for organizations that have expectations that we have to do other things as well. And you've heard me say this before, and again, this is definitely worth repeating. Sales is a 24/7 hour job. If you're serious about wanting to generate money, 6 figures plus, you either have to have the resources, and I mean 100% of your time is spent selling, or you need to hire somebody. And that's an organizational decision. But your responsibility is to educate your associates. It could be your board, it could be town council. It's impossible to be successful at sponsorship sales if it's on the side of your desk. It's just not possible. So having said that, and moving forward, what we're going to talk about today is strategy, assuming that we have a strategy. We're going to talk about prospecting and where do we find those prospects. And then we're going to talk about our toolkit. What's in our toolkit that's going to help us sell? So let's start with strategy. So we've spoken before about, actually, I'm curious, how many people on this call, if you're able to put your hands up, have heard me speak before? Like, how many newbies do I have? Do I have So you're mostly newbies, right, Deb? Oh, Kim from Whitby's heard me. Who else? Amy, Daniel, I recognize. Kyle. Okay, good, 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 good. My expectation is that you guys help and participate. So I'll go through the stuff that I've said before quickly, and then, we'll get to the things that I haven't said and the stuff that we haven't done. So we're going to talk about strategy, and that's really important and a great opportunity right now. We're in 2022. You know that we're not talking about 2021. And I see that some of you are doing virtual, and bravo. But 2022 will be live. So that gives us, hopefully, time now to think about our strategy. So what is our strategy around our packaging? So some of us, our strategy is to post something on our website and hope that buyers, sponsors, email you or dial you up and say, hi, I'm Mr. Sponsor, and I want to give you some money. Are there many of you on the call that have had a positive experience through your website with buyers or sponsors actually approaching you? And I can see some of you are smiling, because we all know that that's highly unlikely. That's just not the world we live in. You actually have to be proactive. The opportunity to be reactive to, some organizations, as we know, they're just reactive. I've been told if you work at Mount Sinai, in the donations foundation department, your role is pretty much just to answer the phone. And I get it, but that's not us. We're not just managing the incoming calls of people who want to give us money. So strategy, is that in fact a strategy? Of course it is. You're posting the opportunity. You can buy naming, you can buy the blue, you can buy the red. Call us for further information. Lots of organizations do that. They even do it for their facilities. And I know there's some towns and cities on the phone and municipalities where they're posting, Regina, Red Deer, Grand Prairie, as an example, are posting their naming rights and are sitting and waiting for buyers to actually call. Is that a good strategy? Is it a bad strategy? It's a strategy. What else is a strategy? We've talked about naming rights, selling naming rights to our property. So I had a conversation last week with a woman who's a leader in the industry. She may in fact be on the call. That pre-COVID, they would never sell their brand. There's too much equity in the brand. There's no way. Okay, now 2022, we're looking for ways to reinvent ourselves, which answers some of the questions about how do we bring back the sponsors who don't want to come back. So what are we doing differently? So back to strategy. Are we going to sell naming rights? What are the advantages of selling naming rights besides money? What are the disadvantages? I can give you an example of a disadvantage. We sold naming rights to an event in downtown Toronto to a developer. Well, we used to have 5 developers in the event, all contributing an equal amount. One developer stepped up to the plate and bought title. So guess what's happened to the other developers? Okay, good. I like nods. At least I know that's the challenge with this stuff, rather than actually being in your company. It's far more engaging, but we're doing well so far. So there's costs, literally costs to selling naming rights if it's a category that's in high demand. But there are advantages. And we've talked about, who are our ideal naming rights partners and what categories are they? And we've talked very generally about it being in retail. And if you have a big retailer, it could even be a small retailer in your, I'll call it village, because I've sold in villages and towns. It could be a home hardware. whomever it is. Part of their participation could be cash, but it could also be their offer to introduce you to their suppliers. Their cash amount might be insignificant. It could be, let's say it's 20,000, 25,000, 30,000 per year, no less than a 5-year term. But their ability to leverage their suppliers, if we could bring in 20 or 30 of their suppliers, that's a strategy, if that's your strategy. So naming rights also presents an opportunity for presenting status. So if it's the right naming rights partner, if you go and sell presenting, so what that means, because I know some of you may be unclear about that, is that the presenting sponsor is in the word mark. So it's the Rogers Cup presented by National Bank. That's the brand. They're in all collateral material, all signage. That's your website. They're buying the brand. And, you know, I just picked tennis as an example, but there are many, many cases where the presenting sponsor is there because of the title sponsor. Again, leveraging brand, leveraging relationship. Knowing when companies invest in sponsorship, it's not just B2C. And again, we've talked about this, it's also B2B. B2B, especially if you decide you're going to sell title or presenter. Actually, regardless, it's B2B. Companies want to do business with other companies. It's that Olympic model. You pay a rights fee, and I'm going to talk about that as a strategy, and that enables you to co-market with other companies. And again, I'm not talking about, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm talking our world, you know, our world of 5,000 or 7,500 or 10,000. That's the world we live in. I'm not talking about race car sponsorship or professional sport or hockey or curling or all those crazy stuff that gets gazillions of dollars. I'm talking about our community where our operating budget might be 150,000. And I suspect most of us in here today are somewhere in the range of under $250,000 for our operating budget. So that's one strategy. Let's talk about another strategy, which is marketing partnerships. So how do we bring in companies? And again, I don't know if the number is 5,000, if it's 10,000 or 7,500 or 15,000, only you know what your market can command. And we can talk about this. And Debbie, if you could remind me later when we talk about sales, how to test our community to see what is the price point, because there's no point in going in too high because we'll just fail. So marketing partnerships, my vision of that, and again, it's not really my idea, I'm stealing it like I do many good ideas, is bring in a group of sponsors who want to collaborate, who want to build community. They want to build the event. They all work and live and play in the village that we're operating. And again, you know, if it is it 8 marketing partners, is it 6, is it 10? We can talk about that once we talk about budget. Now, that A, B, C, D is naming and presenter and marketing partners. Just looking at my notes so that I don't miss anything. Do we have any questions around packaging and really strategy? Because that's the refresh button, ladies and gentlemen. That's our refresh. We can't continue to do what we've been doing. We just can't. 2022, we're all going to be strong out of the gate. There are certain industries that are booming. When you pick up the phone because a sponsor has said, I don't want to come back, what's new that's going to excite them about coming back? Any questions, comments, concerns?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions.
I'm just going to throw this out there because I was optimistic this year and look where it got me. Do you really think we'll be live in 2022?
Oh, darling, I am so not the person to answer that. Are you the one that runs a dog event or something?
I do, yes.
Oh, right, I remember you. My dog is on the couch.
I have 9 beside me. This is the ones we rescue.
Like it's a perfect world. A perfect world. Oh. I can't answer that. I mean, all I know is, money is something that we all are here to talk about, and presuming that we're going to present it as live. And if you're a spring event, maybe you might start thinking about being a fall event, just to give yourself a little bit of extra time.
It's believe it or not, that there is quite a few pet events. The big one is in Toronto, is Wolfstock.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Been to it.
Yeah. And you got it.
It's not live, is it, this year?
No.
No, it can't be. Right.
Nope.
Yeah, but I have a friend who's executing I think it's a walk with your dog. So yeah, there's lots of virtual opportunities, but they tend to have a charitable piece to it, which of course, Linda, you have. And we're going to talk about that as well, in terms of strategy.
That was my question. Do I go, because what it's like. You don't plan this in 2 days. Do we start going full force saying, yeah, we're back? Usually the 3rd week in June is when we usually run it. We're kind of like homecoming. People know, like I had someone come from Puerto Rico, which may never happen again. But, people, they keep asking me, well, how come you're not having it live this year? I'm like, really? Do I need to explain that?
Yeah, no, you don't need to explain that. And don't waste time, Linda, because you have your hands full, and you really need to focus on next year and building your sales package, which may in fact for you be, a 90-second video. I mean, we all know that dogs and children are real hot buttons for people. And one of the ways you might consider shaking things up is not using a deck, but using a video, and a 90-second video. And I used one. I hired a young lady. I mean, there's so much talent out there now. And, it cost me under $1,000. Like, it's not expensive. So I'm going to jump to the conversation. Anything else, Linda? You're good?
Yeah, I'm good. Sometimes I don't think I don't give myself enough credit because, I mean, we only get 8,000 people. But the Super Bowl commercial one year had the Heinz. They had all the dogs running in little wiener hot dog costumes. And I would love to get them on board and say, hey, we're running back to the festival for this year. But
so, like, FYI, 7,000 is a huge number. I mean, it really is. So congratulations.
Okay. Thank you.
Judy, it's Leanne. So a lot of the majors are not supporting any form of an in-kind event, certainly for this year. Have you heard anything from a lot of the banks? Have you heard anything about for 2022 if they're going to release that and then be amicable or open to supporting in-person events again?
So, Leanne, you mentioned the word in-kind.
No, these are larger sponsors.
Oh, okay. You said the larger sponsors aren't supporting in-kind.
No, I'm sorry, they're not supporting in person. I didn't mean to say
Oh,
in
you
person
mean
event.
virtual? They're not
Just
supporting virtual.
virtual only for 2021.
Okay.
I know, and that's right in their mandate. So they won't even consider an in-person
Right.
event this year. And I didn't know if maybe they're going to release that hopefully for 2022.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suspect that they've been mandated to take that position, especially the financial institutions, just for the security of their own employees, and they're just following protocol. So my suspicion is that those realities will change, and they will be available to us for 2022.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I didn't know if anyone had sort of mentioned that they were hoping to release that. But anyway, we'll just work one day at a time.
Judy, Amy G has a question. Are there any links to resources to develop fundraising plans for projects? Looking for a template to work from.
A template for fundraising. Say that again. Read it again.
Sorry. Resources to develop fundraising plans for projects. They're looking for a template.
Or the sponsorships plans. We're just, we're working on having to develop. We have a new park development area, so we see that there's opportunities for sponsorships and community donations and stuff, and have to bring back to council a plan of how we're doing that. And I'm just seeking any templates or guidelines that to make.
Amy, who are you with?
I'm with the municipality of North Perth. We're a small rural community just north of Kitchener.
Beautiful. So there is no template. I mean, and I'm happy to spend a few minutes with you after the call, but specifically if you're building a new park, as an example, like the outdoor space is very popular right now. And it's being funded by the feds, as you probably know. They're throwing money at any outdoor infrastructure, whether it's trails or outdoor skating rinks, etc., parks. There's no question you can sell, if council permits, you could sell naming rights to your park. That'll command your biggest bang for your buck. Anything else before we move on?
One other question. How do you get Nancy's asking, how do you get the contacts to send the video, and how do you begin the email?
Okay. Can we park that for now?
Sure.
And talk
Yep.
about that when we get into sales?
Yep.
Great. So we've just been talking about, what we're going to do that's different, if anything, but I think I think now's the time to reshake things up and look at it as an opportunity. One of the strategies we've talked about in the past is aligning yourself with charities. And I know that many of you are not-for-profits yourself and small and have your own costs and want to generate sponsorship. But that's one pocket of money. The charity relationship is really a strategy to attract new patrons who may very well work in companies, which may very well help you open up other doors. So, I mean, Rotary does this very well at all their Rib Fests. There's generally multiple charities involved, and the charities come to the event, and their employees of the charity are engaged. And I've talked about, entrance and exit, and give us a toonie, and it'll go to the children's, or it'll go to the dogs, or it'll go to Big Sisters, or, one of the ways to start making yourself bigger than you are, if you need to, is to align yourself maybe with a hospital foundation. Maybe it's a woman's shelter, because they will view you as a third-party event. You're not giving them your sponsorship money, but it helps refresh your story. So when you're calling back sponsor X who says, I don't really know, well, you're calling him to let him know, well, this year we're working with the Women's Shelter and Big Sisters and whoever. You know, there are events, very successful events, that have multiple charities, and you can tick off which, as a patron, as a guest, when I come to your event, I can tick off, do I want to support Sistering? Do I want to support, you know, what's my hot button? Is it the hospital? Is it whatever it may be? And again, we've talked about this, give us a toonie or more at your discretion, and we'll give you this little gift. And maybe that's also, so that helps refresh your story and make you bigger than what you are. We all need to refresh in some way. Question?
Judy, yeah, someone has a question. How do you, it's Orno Mendoti Chamber. How do you have charities involved and the funds are split between the organization and the charity, as many people feel all funds should go to charity?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, when I'm a patron at your event and there's charities there, I get, one choice is have multiple charities and I get to choose who I support. The other option is just to have one charity per year. And then you build up a repertoire so that charities start applying to be the recipient of your event. Did that answer the question, Deb, or whoever asked?
I'm not sure.
Hi, it's Sylvia.
Hi, Sylvia.
We had an event before Christmas, and we promoted that we were giving proceeds to the food bank. Okay,
Right.
but we were also doing it as a fundraiser for our chamber. And is it just the wording, or how do you do something where people don't think everything they buy, every dollar they buy something for goes to the charity and there's no funds going to the chamber?
Right. So I think it's really important that the chamber, when they're out selling sponsorship, that's for the execution of the event. That sponsorship dollars enables you to execute the event. The money's generated on site through butter tarts or whatever it may be, that's all goes to the charity. You have to be very clear.
Okay, because we sold tickets. It was $10 for an adventure, and it was like a raffle.
Yeah.
So the $10, we were giving $1 from each ticket to the
Right. Right. So that's a, yeah, and I understand the complication as a patron. You know, okay, so I'm giving you $10 and the chamber's keeping $9. You know, maybe you're better off looking at getting, you know, a one-time sponsor of $5,000 or whatever your operating costs are, and we're going to talk about that, and keeping it clean. This is the sponsorship money that we're using to execute, and everything sold, 100% is going to charity. So let's roll on to that. Pricing. You know, how do we come up with the pricing? Are we $5,000 properties? Are we $7,500? Are we $20,000? Are we? So it's not about valuation, and everybody's fixated on valuation except me, because I've never been asked whether it's a $5,000 bench or it's a 7-figure sale. I have never been asked in my history of selling, how did you come up with that number? Or for that matter, can I see the valuation? Never. So how do we price given that reality? What we do is we back into it. So what I've done recently in Devon, Alberta, council said, prior to me coming on the scene, said we have in our budget for 2020, $150,000 per year, which of course they generated zero. And then they hired us. But they still, the point here is their goal was $150,000 per year. So how do you get there? How do you, so your operating budget, when you're executing an event, sponsorship must cover your costs. So if your costs are 30,000, or your costs are 110,000, or they're 250, or Deb, you execute an event. I don't know what your costs are. Sponsorship for, and I'm talking about when we all get together in person. Let's say your costs are $250,000. Sponsorship has to cover our costs. And the reason we have to have sponsorship cover our costs is because it might rain that day. Nobody comes. Or whatever happens. And believe me, I've been involved with lots of rainy day events where the only happy people are the VIPs. But they paid a premium to be a VIP, and they're there because of the title sponsor. That becomes a total B2B experience. So it's okay if it rains, if your sponsors don't care about the consumers. They might just care about the politicians, the sponsors. Maybe that's why they're there, and they're in our VIP tent. Again, sponsors, there's B2B, B2C, and then there's B2P. They want to be in a room with the local MP who says, oh, isn't this event fabulous, and brings everybody together. So many different agendas. So that aside, if you've got to back into it, like we did in Devon, so in that case, we had some physical assets as well. So we recommended selling naming rights for 50% of what we were looking for. And then we sliced and diced the rest of the town inventory. And it's a town, it's a population of 5,500. And also through that process, we were able to test the waters. And I've now been working on that project for about 9 weeks. And we've generated over 900,000. So we're getting there, which is a phenomenal amount of money for a town of 5,500. Phenomenal amount of money. Where was I going with that? Something about naming rights, supplier relationships.
How you figure
You're
out,
slicing and dicing.
how you figure out what your costs are.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, Linda, what is it?
How you're figuring out what your costs are, like what you're worth.
The valuation.
Yes. Yes. It's the costs that you guys all live with every day. And oh yes, I know where I was. Thank you. It was I started understanding about 4 weeks ago what the price point capacity was in that community. So yes, I was able to attract, a $500,000 commitment, 50,000 per year for a 10-year term. And another one, which was actually a cold call that came in. And I think it was either prior to doing this session, prior to doing my last FEO or my session on naming rights, where 15 minutes before I get this cold call who wants to name a rink for 14,500. And then I had to do the session, and then I looked at my phone when the session was over, and he actually did send me an email confirming he wanted it. So, but beyond that, the majority of companies, their price point is $5,000. And that has set the precedent for all of my conversations. So again, we all work in small markets, generally. It's not difficult to kill ourselves and blow ourselves out of the water. We've got to stay within what we think is going to be their capacity, number one. Number two, we're going to go to them with a refresh. This is what the ballpark's going to look like. This is what the experience is going to look like. This is who else may be there with you. Might only be 6 people, it might be 10. We got to get out of the business of, I only have $500, will you take it? And I know there's somebody here on that call because I met you a couple of years ago where you have like so many people at $500. And I mean, I said to you then, and I'll say it again, like make them a friend of the, they're friends of the event, or they're friends of whatever, friends of the festival, but they're not sponsors. Like $500, lovely, but you're not a sponsor. Okay.
Oh, I'm guilty of that.
Well, who isn't? I mean, you know, many of us are running events. It's our business. You know, it's $100,000 cost, and every 500 bucks gets us there. I get it. Just be clear about their delivery, about your responsibility for delivery, because those guys suck your blood.
Judy, there's a couple of comments here. First, Marnie said for our Stars and Thunder event, we partnered with United Way. They corralled the not-for-profits, ran the 50-50 draw, divvied up the funds with the NFPs, and all the NFPs had to do was provide a number of volunteers to assist with the event. There was an MOU. We needed an army of volunteers for the 8-day event. So that's what they did. And then Kyle asks,
Bravo. Bravo.
good one. And Kyle said, how did you come to that valuation? Kyle, did you want to, where are you? There you are.
Yeah, I was just, when she was trying to get back to how did she come to that?
Oh, I see. Okay. How did you come to that evaluation?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Thanks.
All right. So strategy. Also, there's some towns and cities, I've mentioned this, and municipalities, you know, can you bundle in some physical assets into your programming? So they get Canada Day, and they also are the naming rights sponsor of our park or our baseball diamond or our entertainment square in town. I would highly recommend having that conversation with your chief administrative officers if they're highly motivated to generate new money, non-tax money. You know, can we look at town assets or city assets that we can sell and possibly bundle into events?
I got a whole dog park built by Royal Canin. They sponsored everything just to have their name on a plaque on the dog park.
Yep. Excellent. The other thing is, I'm going to move on to prospecting. So where do we get our prospects from? And, you know, other than stealing them, which is fine with me. So you look at other events or you look at other communities and you see who's supporting food and beverage or ethnicity or kids or pets. Who's doing that in other markets? Maybe they'll do it in yours. If you are in fact a town, city, or municipality, or a chamber, how collaborative is council and purchasing and your leadership? Are they prepared to provide you with a list of suppliers in town? That's really important. It's impossible to expect you to raise 6 figures for a town event without knowing who the suppliers are to the town, who's delivering, who's got the waste contract, waste management contract, who's got the cleaning contract. I mean, I just struck a deal, a 6-figure deal with a cleaning company. B2B, not B2C. They're not cleaning homes. They're cleaning town offices and recreation facilities and libraries. B2B. And if your leadership is not collaborative, you can do what I do. You can Google it. Go into purchasing in your town and see who just won a contract. I do that every day. My life is really pathetic. That's what I do. every morning. I go and look at my clients, and because I know before they tell me who got a contract. I learned Border Paving just got a $250,000 paving contract in one of the towns I'm working in. So yes, maybe they'll be collaborative and tell you who's got the plumbing contract for the town, who's got the electrical, who's got the, you know, the under the road piping or sewage, or, I mean, there's a lot of categories. And my God, if you're executing an event in a town, and you could be a venue on a campus too, that has suppliers, somebody's cleaning your building. And if you tell them, you know, that the mayor is going to be at the event, or council, maybe that's their hot buttons. You all know that another favorite category for me is entrepreneurs. It's actually my most favorite. Every deal I've done, with the exception of Epcor in Calgary, even Joe Lubovic, I mean, has been an entrepreneur. Almost every deal I've done in 20 years. So small business is the backbone of our economy. It's not the banks. It's not insurance. It's not the big guys. And all of us have entrepreneurs in our community. And they might be farmers. And you all know I've done 7-figure deals with farmers. Farmers can be very wealthy and want very much to support their community, because that is where they were born, and that's where their children play and their employees. And if they're growing anything that we can eat, they're doing incredibly well. Don't judge a book by its cover. These guys and wives who generally make the decisions in those environments, they've got money. So anyway, I think I've made my point there, that really examine the companies that are doing business in your town. And I'm not talking about the Home Depots, but the grocery stores, the IGAs that are, or the YIG, Young Independent Grocery. I mean, I've done several of those because they're managed by and owned by an operator. And you know, grocery stores are doing really well right now for the obvious reasons. So how do you involve them? And again, how do you leverage their suppliers? They're really important. So what categories are making money? Who's doing business in your town? Who has town contracts? But it goes back to, you know, what is your strategy and what are you selling? You know, are you selling politics? Are you selling council? Are you selling B2B? Are you selling B2C? You might be selling all of it. Home builders, land developers, certainly in Ontario, really important category. I also look at who's hiring in my community, because companies will sponsor or buy naming rights if they're recruiting. Like Calgary right now is going through a major high-tech burst, thank God. So there's going to be a lot of competition in Calgary for engineers and talent. So I'm going to recommend, when I'm selling assets in Calgary to these high-tech companies, put your name here and you'll become top of mind overnight. The other category that's doing really well, of course, is vets. Like everybody has an animal, at least one. Like, my God, I can barely get an appointment with my vet. So go where the money is.
The only challenges with vets is Martin Fisher. He runs the Ontario Veterinarian College, and they very stickler about no vet can promote themselves over another vet to gain an advantage. And I've had hour conversations with him about, doing microchipping and, those kind of things. They're very hard to get into.
Thank you for that. That's good.
Yeah.
To know. So we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to talk about sales. So the conversation now is about your toolbox. What's in your toolbox? So do you have a mobile device now that you didn't have before? Can you get someone to either develop an app, or is there something that your event can go into my phone now, and that's going to be a messaging strategy or a sales strategy for my event and possibly my sponsors? And, could it be even interactive, where if you bank with us here in Orangeville, we'll put $20 towards the charity or the event or whatever the case may be. Mobile apps are a reality. So do we have one? Is that in our toolbox? Audience survey. Has anyone conducted an audience survey? That's in your toolbox. How people feel about you. But it's beyond now. If you have the opportunity moving forward to ask people, do you own a car? Or are you leasing a car? Are you planning to buy a car? Or do you own your home? Are you planning to buy a home? Like, if you ask specific questions around specific categories, that's going to help you when you call Mr. Car Company and say, Mr. Local Car Company, and say, want you to know, we got 40 responses and 10% are planning to buy a car in the next 2 to 3 years. Like that's good stuff for your toolbox. Or development. Is your board in your toolbox? Are they an asset or are they a liability? If you have a board. And we've counseled many organizations where we find that the board is not carrying its weight. Some boards really do, and some don't. Are they opening doors for you? Like, why are they on the board? If they're on the board for policy, that's one thing. But if they're on the board and you want to develop a board, you need a board who's prepared to open doors and sell for you. And, it could be, the mayor could be on your board. Call it a board, call it a committee, call it whatever you like, friends of, and the mayor's there. Because that takes me to my next really, really important point here, is referral. So when you pick up the phone and call Sam or Sally, what's the first thing out of your mouth? So I know for me, it's, hi, I work for the town of X or the city of, and I make sure that he or she can hear. And then what's the next most important thing that comes out of my mouth? Not my name, which I have to tell them, is that Jim or James suggested I call, James Sutherland. And James Sutherland is a council member. Now, I'm not suggesting council is the person you're going to use for your referral, but you need a qualifier in your call. Whose name are you going to drop? Now, if you don't have a name and you don't function in environments that I do, then you need to find a coach in the organization, company, as small as it is, director of sales, even the general manager. I'm talking to a paving company. I'm working through the general manager, and he's advising me on the owners and what the owners are going to want to see in the agreement. Never talk to the owners. I probably never will, but I've got a coach. And if I ultimately end up talking to the owners, at least the coach has coached me on what's going to be important in my elevator speech, because it's all an elevator speech. right? I mean, this is not a 5-minute, oh, do you have 5 minutes? There are no more meetings. This is a 2-minute conversation. And if you've got the right referral, he might even pull over if he's driving his truck and have the conversation. And I guess, you know, before I close, you know, I can't help but stress enough that research is everything in our business. I'm not suggesting that you become like me, but, you know, knowing what's happening in your community and who's getting contracts and who's doing well, and the individuals in those companies and what their hot buttons are, and whether you're a B2B event or a B2C or you've got government, really think about everything that you can be and not what you were. And it really is now the time to refresh, like really give it a shake. Because next year, everybody's going to come out of the gate very competitive. And not everybody's going to survive. We're not all going to make it because we have too many other responsibilities on our desk. So we've got to prioritize, and we've got to be strategic, and we've got to have a new offering. Other than that, I want to thank you for participating. And I hope to see you next year. Debbie's going to make that possible. I know her. And if you have any questions, now is the time.
So Jan Mowbray did send a question. Given $500 shouldn't be considered a sponsor, would you consider it okay idea for 2 or 3 or more to become joint sponsors for 5K or 10K?
Well, we did that with Zamboni, where they shared the cost and there was a logo on each side. So yes, you can split up an asset if that helps you generate the sale.
Okay, and then Danielle Garcia says, how can I get new sponsors for a community event about food and music in December 2021? It'll be 2 hours online from December 6th to 10th, and then 2 days in person. Our former sponsors are saying they don't want to come back this year.
Right. So I think I answered that question. You have to refresh yourself. You can't go back to your former sponsors who are unhappy, or for that matter, undecided, without a refresh. There has to be something new in your toolkit. And then the other question, Debbie, was the concern around commercialization and media.
Yes.
And
yes.
And I think, you know, we're all in the business of storytelling. It's a story we have, whether it's about our kids or whether it's about the economic impact or whether it's about the good wine or the good cheese, or, you know, it's a human relation story. That's what we should be using the media for. And it's tagged with our premier partners, our marketing partners, our naming rights, our presenting partner. Definitely not our $100 sponsors, or $500 for that matter.
Yeah, because you talked about media buys before. Oh, Regina, did you have a question?
Yeah. I have a couple questions. It's my year 1 putting together the Toronto International Culture Fest. And I'm looking, what would you recommend in terms of cultural grants that I can apply to, as well as sponsors that would be supportive in putting together all different type of cultures at the festival?
Well, Regina, my colleague does all the grant writing, so I would really have to defer to her, who's not on this right now.
Well, if I can get her contact, that'd be great.
Sure.
Okay.
You can contact me. You've got my email. And then I'll forward it to her.
Okay, I do. Thank you.
Okay.
On one of the questions, and you may have already answered this, Brian asked, when planning a media buy for impressions with a media partner, what type of deliverables should festivals and events ask for?
Yeah, I read that question and I didn't understand it.
Oh, okay.
So I think my interpretation is, what should you be asking for with a media buy is a return on investment.
Brian was on the call. Brian, if you're there, can you maybe give, oh, I don't know if he's here. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering, like, what type of, are you like offering mentions in radio spots? Is it a lot of like online? Is there certain things that you're finding that are more attractive to sponsors?
Well, again, every market is different, and sometimes radio can be really effective. And I've done radio campaigns, and there's lots of really successful radio campaigns where they own the radio for the day or the week. It's pre-event, post-event. It really depends on your cause. It varies, but there are choices, and your return on investment varies.
Very good, thanks.
Tracy from Peterborough Music Fest asked, and again, it may be you have to, your toolkit, what you were talking about. Can Judy provide some tips on how to entice returning sponsors when the value may look different on our outdoor festival? I think you did answer that. I expect to be back selling our packages by November and have some work to do to rebuild our VIP experiences to ensure those who are ready to join us in September 2022 will be proud that we have made it through the pandemic, as we hope to still be able to offer free concerts in our 4-acre park all summer long.
Is that a question for me?
That was, well, the question is, can you provide some tips on how to entice returning sponsors when the value may look different?
Yes, and I think I tried to cover that generically, which is refresh.
Right. Okay, I don't have anything else from anybody on email. Does anybody else online have anything?
Just if you can include the contacts for everybody that was on the call today, that'd be great.
Well, I'll see if I can. That's really going to be up to each individual person, whether they want to share their info.
Of course. That's good.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Make a story personal. People love that. Thank you from George Arujo. I think that's it, Judy.
All right.
Again, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for spending that with us and answering all these questions. And thanks everybody for attending. Our numbers were really good today. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, concerns, Judy's email address was in the email I sent out this morning. And if you need it again, just reach out to me.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone. Good luck.
Thank you.
Touch.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.